Is this alt season? That's the number one question I see on social media over the past 6 months, and that's what we're going to climb into today and see what the data says. Hey guys, it's Keith Allen. How come I'm not here? Where am I? There we go. Hey, hope everybody's having a good week, man. We're off to a good start. We've got Bitcoin making some headway. We hit new all-time highs earlier, and now we're kind of hovering, a little bit of a pullback. And obviously, we're seeing ETH soar. We're seeing alts soar. What does it all mean? That's what we're going to try and climb into here. And I will tell you that, we are seeing signs in the charts of a developing ETH and altcoin, rallies happening. The ingredients are certainly there for a potential alt season. But do we actually have we checked all the boxes yet? And that's what we're going to climb into here. And I'm going to be honest. If you've been following along for a while, I've been a skeptic of whether or not we'll actually see an alt season in the historical sense, like we've seen in previous cycles. And that's largely because of just the tremendous amount of institutional demand on Bitcoin. I just don't know if Bitcoin dominance is going to fall as much as it has in the past. It's obviously falling now, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. But that's a big factor. And we're also going to discuss what the catalysts are behind this ETH rally and the alt rallies, and what's kind of helping fuel the momentum on that as well. Before we climb in, though, just a real quick bit of housekeeping. If you're new to the stream, my name is Keith Allen, and I am glad to have you with me. I'm a full-time trader. I'm a work-from-home dad, and I'm co-founder of Material Indicators. Live chat is open. This is just as much for you. Actually, it is for you. I was going to say it's as much for you as it is for me. It's really not for me. It's for you. Trying to help you guys out, trying to share some insights with you and give you some data that you can marinate on and make your own trading decisions rather than speculate, rather than listen to all the noise across social platforms. I want to show you some hard facts, show you some news, show you some data points, show you some indicators, let you make your educated decisions. So again, live chat is open. We always enjoy having you guys with me. If you're an OG, thanks for coming back. I really, truly appreciate the ongoing support. Do me a favor, whether you're new or you've been here a while, start smashing some buttons. Help me grow this channel. Hit that like, hit the share, invite somebody from your network or from your online communities, bring them into the fold, and most certainly make sure that you hit that little bell up top. That's the subscribe button, so you don't miss any of these future streams, not just to see my smiling face, but really so you don't miss out on any of the data or information that I'm sharing with you to help you make data-based trading decisions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and climb in. I want to also remind you that there's a sale going on at Material Indicators. We dropped a new indicator this week. It is the what's it called? Timescape levels. There you go. Timescape levels, support and resistance indicator. Just added it to the Premium Plus toolkit. Use code MITS30 for 30% off Premium Plus. That's a good one, man. Trust me, you want to check it out. So you can find some tutorials for that one online on YouTube as well. So let's go ahead and start sharing what's going on here. And the first thing that I want to address is what's behind ETH. What's going on with this ETH rally? Why has it broken out? And where are we going from here? And the first thing I want to share with you, I shared this on social media earlier today, and I'm not going to do the full breakdown here because Leo does such a great job with it, but you can find this on my X page. Leo Lanza has really climbed into what's going on, and I'll give you the short version. The TLDR version is this. A couple of weeks ago, we heard Tom Lee, who's a fund manager from Fundstrat, was tapped to lead the charge on an ETH treasury for a publicly traded company. And now that kind of, lit the fuse on an emerging trend of more companies coming in and establishing ETH treasuries. So obviously that fuels more institutional demand. We're seeing big inflows on the ETH side. If we look over at the ETFs, obviously Bitcoin's been doing very well here lately, but let's look over and see what is happening on the ETH flows. And you can see that these ETH flows have been increasing. Yesterday, huge day for them, one of their biggest. Some would say, oh, the ETH ETF demand is driving ETH price. Well, you could say it goes the other way. I think that the interest in these ETH Treasuries is what's driving demand on these ETF inflows, and collectively that's driving price. So again, you can check this out. It's shared on my page here at KA Productions on X. So the other part of this is what's fueling that. What's fueling the interest in those ETH Treasuries, and part of that is the fact that if this legislation makes its way through Congress, the House and the Senate, and they had a little sticky situation yesterday, but they're able to at least have a procedural vote today to move things forward. So that's a positive step for the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and so these three bills that are going through, or moving forward, I should say. But to put this in terms of like American football terms, it's a first down, not a touchdown. We're not there yet. But if that does pass, especially the Genius Act, which has a lot of language around stable coins and banks in particular, that's going to open the floodgates for banks, and they are chomping at the bit, waiting to jump into the cryptoverse. And the reason is because these stable coins that are included are running on ETH. So on the Ethereum blockchain. So that's why it is beneficial for ETH price and ETH holders and investors. And that's why these publicly traded companies, and some that aren't publicly traded, I'm sure, are starting to load up on ETH. It is high probability that legislation is going to pass and move forward. So that's really, in my opinion, what is largely behind the ETH rally, and of course, alts are rallying with it. So why, right? You could say, and we could do this. Let's go ahead and pull up an ETH chart. So this is the ETH BTC chart. We'll get to that one in a second. Let's start with ETH USD. And if you look at this, you can see that ETH obviously is on a breakout move here, as it is broken out from this trend after that massive dip that was on the tariff announcement first week of April, when everything bottomed out. And it's been a really nice rally with some just ridiculously long celery sticks along the way, including a 22% candle back in May 8th. That was followed by another 6%. So that was 28% in 2 days. Typically, you'd like to see something like that retrace. It did go back and retest here, by the way. So here was your retest down to the 100-day moving average, and then price has V-shaped recovery right out of that. And in that process, we've started to unwind these moving averages. The green 21 has now golden crossed both the 200-day and the 50-day. And now the 100 is getting drawn up, and it is obviously on a trajectory to unwind and golden cross as well. Once it golden crosses the red 50, then we're all on a nice even path. There are no crossed or wound moving averages. Now, that does not mean that it is up only to infinity. It does not mean that there will not be any support tests or retraces, because there can and there will be. But it means that momentum is obviously bullish at this point. And if you're looking for support tests to happen, there's a couple places that I would look. Just looking straight at the chart right now, you see around this 3,000 level, we have a little bit of consolidation right here. So this is a possibility to look at right in this range. So let's go ahead and just mark that for shits and giggles. And why is it purple? I want it white. And now I want to show you another way that you could, maybe identify some support levels. Let's see if we have timescapes on here. We do. So let's turn that on. This is actually, those are very wide. Let's trim these out a little bit. Make that a little sexier. And okay. Now we can see that we have actually our yearly open right up here. And that's going to be a potential point of resistance. And if we cross that, then you've got something to get really excited about, because this is, in my opinion, probably the last barrier in terms of moving upwards, right? So this could really open the door to price discovery. Obviously, we get back to all-time high territory, which is up here, and then maybe, just maybe, we start thinking about $5,000 ETH. Okay, so the all-time high is obviously still up here, even higher. Gosh. So $5,000 ETH certainly not out of the question for anybody at this stage, right? I mean, this is certainly in the realm of possibilities, and that would be great upside from here. And then, then you get into price discovery and where things go from there. So obviously a good argument for ETH and for those corporate treasury strategies. I see how that could make sense for those companies in terms of investing. I personally, and I had this discussion with somebody on X today, who is heavily invested in Bitcoin, said he likes to diversify, and then went on to explain how he is invested in several stocks on companies that are using Bitcoin treasuries. Well, that's not really diversified, is it? Right? So I prefer to invest in the underlying rather than have that indirect exposure with those companies. But that's up to you. You do what works for you. I'll do what works for me. So in terms of alts following along and what ETH is doing with BTC, these are the things we need to start seeing happen in terms of a potential alt season really, really happening for us. So again, we could have a support test back down in this range, potentially even lower down to the moving averages. Let's see if the weeklies give us anything different. Nice confluence here and a golden cross with the blue 100 and red. Actually, hang on a second. No, that's actually a death cross between the 50 and 100 week moving averages. So that's a lagging indicator, but it's a bearish one. Yes, obviously we're celery sticking out of this right now, but that does not mean that we can't go back down and support test. So don't rule that out. This could be a very shallow crossing. If price continues to move upward, it will be, but this is a bit indecisive and contradictory from what we're seeing on the short term, which just means short-term bullish, medium term, maybe not quite as bullish before we get out, at least until this unwinds, right? So watch for that unwinding to really see this rocket boost. Now let's look at ETH BTC, because this is one of the things that you really want to be watching in terms of really labeling it as an alt season. So I've got a couple different trend lines here, and let me turn off timescapes for a moment, and let's just kind of analyze what we see here on the weekly chart. Actually, let's go to the daily. And so notice that we have confluence here between the 200-day moving average and the trend line. And I have a couple of trend lines built here, and I'll show you why. This trend line, this is really the past year since June of 2024. And we do have now what appears to be a breakout attempt on this. Well, certainly a breakout attempt. Whether it prints as a breakout, I would say we want to look at the weekly and get the close above this level, and then start building candles above this to validate that breakout. Okay, and obviously a close above this 50-week moving average would go a long way towards that. And then there's this trend line up here. And this trend line is really the macro, going all the way back to 2022, where things topped out. And that would be really just the big breakout, in my opinion. And that's a long way away. That's 72% upside from, at least from the trend line. And that's still 51% from where we sit right now. So there's a lot of upside potential right here. And whether or not this is an alt season or not, it's still, like I said at the beginning of this, a trader's market. There's a great opportunity there. Obviously, some risk of rejection right here around the red 50-week moving average. That's at about 0.031. And if we turn timescapes back on, we can look and see if we have actually any confluence between these levels and our what I would consider to be our key resistance levels. And I'm really mostly I'm focused on a few things here with timescapes. Number one, I'm looking at what's relative to the local, to our local time frame, if you will, and that would be really anything from the last year, the yearly open, the quarterly opens, the first week of those time periods. And I would take that back, a year maybe, because we see those come into effect. But then the other thing I look at, and this is not necessarily limited to any one year, is when we have concentrations or clusters of these timescape levels together. That seems to build some strength in those areas. So in terms of looking at the moving averages or the trend line with this, you can see we had our Q3 was right down here. Okay, so let's look at the grand scheme of things. Q2 really was a signal of where, breaking above Q2 is where we signaled that reversion. Okay. And you can see when it opened in April, and this was off of the tariff announcements, price broke down, and it wasn't until recovering that ETH began to really climb. And so now, same set of circumstances. Our Q3 open. This was the first week of Q3. I could take it to the daily, and we could see what the first day was. But here you see that we had here was the Q2, and here was the actual first of the quarter open, right? Was here, and this was another one, right? So after we opened and things broke down, we had this recovery of that first weekly open, and then the recovery of the actual quarterly open, and those were signs that price was going to move up. We came down and retested that quarterly open, and which had confluence with the moving averages. It also had confluence with my little white line here, which was some other technical analysis. And this was a very solid bounce. And so now, as we move up, we look at the Q3 open. You can see it right here, and momentum continued right from that point. Okay, there was one candle, the following candle, sure, it dipped below, but it closed above. And then we had a continuation of that. Another test of support right at that quarterly open. And then a breakout above that first weekly open of the quarter, which had confluence with the 50-day moving average. And here we are moving up above. So I won't be the least bit surprised if we run into resistance up here around the annual open. Here was the year around 0.036. Here was that first week of the year around 0.037. And I also have some technical analysis in this range. So I would, that's my white line. So I would not be the least bit surprised to run into some resistance here. And that still is a solid move just from where we are right now to get to those 2025 open levels. We are, I mean, I'll split the difference. That's still a 26% move from here. Now, this line is that macro trend line that I shared with you. And I would see that that's at, almost 53%. Obviously, another potential zone for resistance, but not a heavy concentration of timescape levels there. And I think that one probably, if we make it that high, then I think price is going to flow through that, and then we get to those bigger upside targets that that I had mentioned. So that's my thought on ETH. And in terms of calling this a bona fide alt season, I would look for this breakout above this trend line to give this some validation or add validation to that idea. So let's move on from there. What else do we need to see? Bitcoin dominance. This is a key metric that we watch, and probably one of the simplest ones to interpret in terms of where the trend is headed. And this is very, very clear to me. Okay. Bitcoin dominance, that's the orange one. Total 3 ES. This is total 3, which is the top 100 coins by market cap, excluding Bitcoin and ETH. And total 3 ES is excluding Bitcoin, ETH, and stable coins. So you can see this divergence very, very clearly here, right? And you can see Bitcoin dominance just absolutely like a free fall, like a lawn dart headed down. And you can see total 3 ES is climbing. And the other third and very important factor of this is the declining stablecoin dominance. Okay, so money is rotating out of Bitcoin, out of stablecoins, and into alts. Yes, this is a positive thing. Now, just the fact that it's rotating does not necessarily mean that we are in a full-fledged alt season. This has to continue. And if we go back to this was the Trump pump. And I don't know if you would characterize this as an alt season or not. I think it was. I think it looks pretty good. And I'll be honest. I'm not a huge alts guy. I'm mostly a Bitcoin trader and an investor, and I trade alts merely for the upside potential. I do not hold long term very many alts. I'm only starting to do that now, including ETH. Because of where we are in the cycle and the narrative that seems to be changing as this asset class matures and evolves. So this was the Trump pump from November 5th when alts really soared. And when I say soar, I'm talking high double digits and triple digits. So that's what you really are looking for in an alt season. You're looking to see these things go not just 10 or 20%. You're looking to see 40%, 70%, 100%, 200% or more. And so this is how things developed back then. And the reason I think this is the most relevant, and the reason I think it's different than what we had seen in other alt seasons, is the fact that because we have so much more institutional demand now than we did back in, say, 2021, I don't know that we're ever going to see Bitcoin dominance fall this low again. So, but it just might not be the same dynamic as it used to be. And so I have to wonder if, number one, Bitcoin dominance will fall as low. And number two, if we do get this full quote unquote alt season, will it last as long as it has in the past? So that's what made this version here back in November, December, very different than what we had seen in previous cycles. Bitcoin dominance didn't go nearly as low, and it didn't last as long. So keep in mind that we could have something similar developing here where, and it would make sense, right? Like year after year, cycle after cycle, the upside on Bitcoin has been exponentially lower than it was in prior cycles. And that is largely because of the amount of adoption. That is largely due to the amount of long-term hodlers. So it's starting to flatten out the price. I mean, we still have a lot of volatility compared to what traditionally, TradFi investors have seen in stocks, but it is over time getting muted. So maybe, and this is just a maybe, there's a little speculation here, maybe it's reasonable to think that the alt season would also potentially be muted, meaning maybe Bitcoin dominance doesn't fall as low, and maybe the alt rally and the alt season doesn't last as long as it used to. Again, whatever the case, this is a trader's market, and it's an opportunity to make money. So I would encourage you, if you are an alt trader, to find those good opportunities. But I would also encourage you to not be greedy and to take profits along the way. Because as the adage goes, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. You don't want to get slaughtered. Okay. When you're hitting targets, start taking some money. And you don't have to take it all on the lowest target, but a little profit taking along the way is how smart money trades. Become the smart money. You don't have to have $1 million to be the smart money. You just have to trade like the smart money. Okay, so let's go to the next metric here. So one of the things that we want to see, and again, since I don't trade alts a lot, I've been doing a lot of research on this lately, and I even tapped ChatGPT to give us some insight on this. And one of the things that ChatGPT said should happen is that total 3 should climb above its prior cycle high, and so that sits right here. And so we'll have to watch and see if that can indeed happen. That gets that would get stablecoin, not stablecoin. That would get alts up there around close to $1 trillion market cap. So keep that in mind. That's a tall order too, right? But that would be just monumental, right? So keep an eye on that. This is something that we're watching. I don't, again, because of the dynamic that I discussed with Bitcoin dominance potentially not falling as low as it has in prior cycles. I don't know if this will shoot out past this. If it does, that is a good indication, and that would be something you check off on the checkbox of alt season qualifiers. So then we go into the mid and low cap alts starting to outperform, right? So alt season isn't just large caps, money rotating into large caps, which we're seeing now, obviously with coins like ETH and Solana, but also with mid and low cap alts starting to outperform. And we do have a good metric here on the MI dashboard that shows that alts are starting to give some nice returns, many of them in double digits. Look, what's this one? Portal, 115% in the past 2 weeks. That's kind of huge. But most of them are not at that level yet, right? 2.99%, 28%, 11%, 16%, 17%, 12%, 8%. So not yet out of the gates yet. And there's also coins that are still bleeding. TST minus 2% in the past 14 days, minus 5%. So keep an eye on these things, right? look for that rotation. Now, the drawdown on most of these coins is not as bad. It's starting, like you can see where it's bright yellow is where the drawdown is just as nasty as it gets, right? That's when you start seeing those, 55% drawdowns, 47% drawdowns, 50% drawdowns, et cetera. And now we're in a situation, and some of those go higher, right? 60%, 70%. Now we're in a situation where the drawdowns are much less. And so that means that most of these coins have capitulated, right? They've bottomed. And so there's opportunity there. Whether they're at their breakouts or not against Bitcoin to validate the alt season is one side of the equation, but there is still opportunity to make money. Just be sure and lock in some profits along the way. Retail speculation. Retail inflows into meme coins, game tokens, the L2 ecosystem, all hallmark signs of euphoric altcoin phases occur, according to ChatGPT. If we look at Google Trends, this is kind of interesting because I've not seen this before. Interest over time. This was that Trump pump we just discussed around the election. It topped around December. And now we're seeing a resurgence in that search topic for alt season. And this is not yet printed yet. So this is inconclusive data, but it's certainly trending in the right direction. Macro and regulatory clarity improvements. Well, these are things that could be catalysts, and these are things that are obviously fueling a lot of the momentum right now. We have this legislation going through Congress, like I said, went through Congress earlier today, and now these have to go up to a full vote. They finalize the language, and then they bring them to a vote to pass as laws and be signed by the president. Into law. That has to happen through both chambers of Congress, through the House and the Senate. So again, this is like first down, not a touchdown, but the outlook is pretty positive for this stuff to happen. So that's where we sit in terms of whether or not we're checking all the boxes to call this a validated alt season. And I would say at this stage, we are in the early stages of an altcoin rotation, not yet officially in a full-blown alt season. I gave you some insight on some of the metrics you should be watching to get a feel for it. But again, the opportunities are here. I don't care if it's alt season or not. I don't want to miss out on the potential of this kind of upside if it's there. And so I'm happy to take positions here and take profits at these key levels where I expect there to be some resistance. I'm happy with a 25% swing trade. I'll take a percentage out and let the rest ride and at least lock in what I got. And if we get the pullback, then I close the position. If it stays open, then I let it go. And then I would likely be watching what's happening here, maybe take profits again, and then get into price discovery with the balance of that position. Hope that gives you some insight and some things to consider here. Doing my best to share along the way with you guys what I'm doing so that you can take that knowledge, take that data, and potentially even use these tools to help yourselves. So again, as I said at the top of this, we are having this sale on the this new Timescapes resistance and support indicator. I encourage you to check it out. Materialindicators.com. Use code MITS30 for 30% off Premium Plus. Going to wrap it right there, my friends. Hope you have a fantastic rest of the trading week and just make calculated data-based decisions. If you haven't searched out the alts that you want, now is the time to do it. This is the time to make money. This is the money-making season, alt season or not. This is the money-making season. So take advantage of that opportunity. The fact that the fact that Bitcoin has simmered down a little bit right here, I'll be honest with you. This is exactly what I wanted to see happen. This is the healthiest thing that can happen for this trend, because shooting straight through is going to be a fast track to a full retrace. We're better off consolidating, allowing price to settle down a little bit. Let's let that rotation happen into ETH and Alts for a little bit, and there may be more dips, right? Bitcoin could dip even further from here, and that's okay. And I would be looking at these support levels, and I'm certainly, of course, looking at those timescape levels to determine if this rally stays alive. For me, obviously, I just mentioned that the confluence between these timescape levels and the moving averages, the trend line, this is all really, really important to me. This, to me, looks like the strongest level of support, right around that quarterly open at 107K. We've already retested 115, and that held pretty well, right? Price went down to 115.7. And if you look at the liquidity in the order book, you can see that's well correlated with what we have down here. But and support is liquidity based support is up above that level right now. But the fact that the technicals aren't really aligned with that just yet, if we have more consolidation in this range around 118, then I'll feel confident in that holding. But it's going to take a lot. Until then, those levels are still at risk for me, and this is where I would see a potential pullback coming if we really see a bigger rotation into ETH and Alts on a breakout. And that could happen, right? If you really want this alt season to explode, and you really want to see a lot of capital rotating out of Bitcoin into ETH and Alts, including those mid and small caps, then that means that price is likely to pull back. Maybe it pulls back to that 21-day moving average around 112. Maybe it pulls back towards that quarterly open right around the trend line here. Even if it stays, listen, as long as we're closing above here, I'm very happy with how this trend continues. Simple as that. To be frank, we could go all the way down here. And in terms of keeping the trend alive, we need to stay above these, the yearly open. And you can see where the 200-day moving average has some confluence with that yearly open. This is what needs to happen for the trend, for the bull trend, for Bitcoin to stay alive. Price needs to stay above here. I'll be surprised if we get that low, but I certainly won't be surprised if we see more capital rotating into ETH and Alts and that takes Bitcoin price down closer to this quarterly open around 107, 108K. Going to leave it right there, guys. Hope that gives you some insight as to what's going on. I'm going to leave you with that Bitcoin ETH chart, because I think that is really indicative of what we're seeing at the moment and what we really need to keep an eye on. Again, if you're interested in this or any of the tools, head over to materialindicators.com. Have a good one, guys.